the new documents within comprehensive sexuality education from the International Planned Parenthood Federation talk about teaching children under 10 years old that there are many different types of sexual activity, which include commercial sex work. That should shock every parent.
Welcome, everybody, to this episode of Bar Watch. I am Tim Thompson, and we have back on the program today Kelly Schenkoske. She's been with us several times now. She's bringing great information to us so that way we're informed and we'll know how to engage in our culture. Kelly, thank you for joining us.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Last time we talked, we were talking about the Sustainable Development Goals, talking about the UN and how people can go right straight to their website, see their Agenda 2030. We talked about examining their words and knowing how they're using words that you and I would think one way on it, but really they mean something totally different because of what they call, admittingly, the evolution of language. So we're trying to make sure we know all these things that are going on. We're talking about comprehensive sexuality. We didn't get too much into that last time, but definitely within the framework of these curriculums, we're seeing these theories. You're seeing all sorts of cultural Marxism and their theories embedded into the curriculums, and it's starting to work itself out. It got put into it. Now it's working itself out into our culture. Talk to us a little bit more about that and what you've seen in CSE.
Yeah, one of the things that is really surprising to me is finding out what different theories are backing comprehensive sexuality education, which does embrace the concepts of intersectionality, which is a big phrase that we see original roots from. It's derivative of the ideas embraced in critical race theory. One of the things I think it's important to say on the surface too is that you don't have to be a scholar on all of these theories. You don't have to start reading every single one, but just to understand that the words we're interacting with may be, in education especially, having these critical theories. And there's so many beyond critical race theory. There's lat-crit theory. There's, for example, I started looking at the essential components of CSE from the original documents of Planned Parenthood, the International Planned Parenthood Federation. And the essential components of CSE include, for example, sexual citizenship. And I began just curiously looking at that and thinking to myself, I wonder if sexual citizenship is a critical theory. And sure enough, it is. The other thing that we're interacting with that a lot of people may not be aware of is queer theory, which if somebody were to actually read it, it'd be really hard to read just because of the ideas behind it, the ideas of removing boundaries, actually not just removing boundaries, but firmly standing against boundaries with regards to children. I mean, some of the new documents within comprehensive sexuality education from the International Planned Parenthood Federation talk about teaching children under 10 years old that there are many different types of sexual activity, which include commercial sex work. That should shock every parent. Right. These ideas. And then there is other things that are being really brought forth at the UN level. And there's so many different groups at the UN level that's another thing that is important for the public and the taxpayer and the parent to know, is that our education system is very much in line with some of the many ideas that really are originating at the UN with accordance to the World Economic Forum. And for example, you have UNESCO, which is one form of the education group that's aligned with the International Planned Parenthood Federation. You also have what's called MGIEP, and you have other groups that are pushing, for example, gender transformative education. And then you also have, this just occurred and I watched it several days. It was a Transforming Education Summit that occurred in New York in September, just last month. And who spoke at this Transforming Education Summit? The two heads of our two large teachers unions, the American Federated Teachers Union and the NEA's Teacher Union. So they both gave speeches there. America is participating in the Transforming Education Summit, and you can actually go and explore that website. And you'd be surprised how much you can find on Twitter and Instagram and YouTube that's just publicly accessible there.
Right.
So there's, all of this is huge. When I first started researching education in 2016, I just thought, oh, this is a California thing. And then I thought, well, maybe the whole US is involved in this. And then now I'm realizing in the last several years, no, this is global. This is a global idea.
Yeah, it's a global idea, and it's not hidden, like you said. Anybody can go to the websites. They are very transparent at this point about what they're trying to do. If they go to cde.ca.gov, that's the California Department of Education .california.gov. So cde.ca.gov. One thing they'll see there is the State Seal of Civic Engagement. Now, I wasn't aware of the. You're shedding light on this for me, and so maybe many of the audience today, they haven't heard of that State Seal of Civic Engagement. What is that about?
So what they say it is to cultivate civic engagement, which sounds really, really good on the surface, getting our kids, for example, when I was growing up, we would do mock trials, and somebody would be the judge, you'd be the jury, you'd argue different cases from the defense and, the legal side of this. And this is much more than meets the eye, as many things are in education. But the idea is not just to include political ideas, but some districts are already stating that their State Seal of Civic Engagement program is to encourage kids to pre-register on school campuses to vote as early as they're able, and then also to go out into their community and register the public to vote, but then very much taking on the ideas of leveraging equity and access in democratic education. So those are some ideas that really you need to pause and look at the definitions. Leveraging, that's an interesting word, equity and access. And then what is democratic education? A lot of these ideas, you can trace them back to a Marxist man named Paulo Freire, and he has passed away, but his ideas are living on. And many teachers, for example, there was a public YouTube video broadcast by the California Teachers Association, and one teacher stated exactly what Paulo Freire's ideas are. He said, in quote, "Teaching is completely political in all aspects and realms," end quote. And that idea that our children are being taught not ideas, but really they're being taught how to think by many teachers, not all teachers, but there are many teachers that are there to promote a political agenda. And they believe that this is social justice and that this is how you achieve system change. So the way that this is being leveraged, the word that they use, is to really push beyond just the idea of being an engaged citizen. They want students to be activated towards, many of them, their politics. So it's a topic that parents statewide need to be aware of. If your kids are in school, there's likely a variety of political messages. I know there's been teachers that have had students protest, we're wearing all black tomorrow for fill in the blank, or we're going to have our elementary schoolers make signs today, and then they're going to go out and they're going to show their signs and do a mock protest. I mean, these things are becoming more commonplace than many parents realize,
right?
And especially even with little kids.
Right. And you talk about leveraging, you talk about equity, and when people hear equity, some people think, oh, equality is good. We want equality. That's not what equity is. There's now equitable math. And like you said, that Paulo said that all teaching is political. So what's going on with this equitable math?
Yeah, there's actually a great group I recommend. It's savemath.net. I believe it's .net. But they are right now in the effort at the state Department of Education in California to transform math. And Equitable Math, you can actually go to a website called equitablemath.org. And there are definitely beliefs that stem from the ideas of critical race theory that are being woven into math, in addition to social justice and the idea that, for example, 2 + 2 = 5, that seeking a purely objective answer in a math problem is inherently racist. So these ideas are being brought in and manifest through various platforms. Social emotional learning is another woven in entity to math. So a lot of the things that we see in schools nowadays, they're all integrated systems into one another. And the way I've described this for parents a lot of times is you have 3 big topics in education. You have comprehensive sexuality education, which can include sexual orientation, gender identity, or not can, it will. You have critical race theory or critical theories or critical pedagogy. Pedagogy is a really big word that basically means if we were to put on glasses of a specific pedagogy, everything you do as a teacher is now seen through that lens. But 3 big topics are woven in and integrated throughout one another and into every subject. And the way I describe it to parents, especially in the last episode, we spoke about community or healthy schools, the WISC model. These 3 ideas, comprehensive sex ed, social emotional learning, critical theories, they form the foundation of the home in a way, or the schoolhouse. But if we were to look at it like a home, they are the foundation and they weave into all the subjects. And then you have the house. The house is now the school system, and the parents are the government and these community schools that provide the nutritional needs for the child, that provide the physical and mental and social oversight of the child. And this is a system where parents are slowly being eroded and erased from the equation as the government usurps their authority over the parents. And we don't even know, most of us, that it's even happening, but it's happening.
Yeah, it's happening right underneath their nose. One of the main things I've been telling people is just get your kids out. Get your kids out of the public school. You've been doing that. You've had great success even lately. You want to share some of that with us?
Yeah, this is, we began homeschooling in the fall of 2019, and we've seen, as many Californians have, people and friends moving out of state. And in an effort to build up the homeschool community, I put it out there on social media that I was looking for an opportunity to build the community, create field trips, foster, all kinds of neat gatherings. So we had our first meeting just park, and we can start planning field trips, etc.
We lost you for a second. So start over with, we had our first meeting.
Oh, sure. Yeah, so we had our first meeting just over 4 weeks ago, and it was wonderful. We were expecting maybe 2 or 3 moms to show up, and we had over 20. And then the following Friday, we had another meeting, and we had another set of 20 moms. Now, in a short amount of time, just over a month, we have grown to almost 70 moms, and we're doing all kinds of gatherings. We're doing field trips, science fair planning, mom's night outs, where, maybe we go and we do an art class, or we learn canning together, or we do a book club about homeschooling. And these kinds of things are just wonderful. So if you can build up your homeschooling community and get your kids out, you'll be glad you did.
Awesome. Well, I think that's a great praise report to end on. That's all the time we have together. Real quickly, because we do have just a small amount of time, how can people connect with you?
Yeah, my email is info@atimetostand.me, and my Substack is atimetostand.substack.com.
Awesome. Well, we'll put that in the comment section so people can connect with you. Kelly, so much information comes from you. Glad that you're doing what you're doing. Thank you for exposing what's going on in our culture and helping to make sure we're informed. So God bless you. We'll see you next time right here on Our Watch with Tim Thompson.